David Hooper here with another episode of the Music Business Radio Behind the Scenes podcast. We taped an episode of Music Business Radio today, and I want to talk about that. This was with Chris Gero of Yamaha Entertainment Group. When you think of Yamaha, it's one of the most recognized brands in the world. The logo is actually 3 tuning forks put together, but a lot of people think of motorcycles. They think of engines, they think of jet skis. Yamaha has their fingers in a lot of things. With that said, as far as musical instruments, they are the world's largest musical instrument manufacturer. Not only that, they're the world's largest guitar manufacturer. So, founded in 1887, they are a $5 billion company and certainly making a mark on the music business. Personally, I had my very first musical instrument that was a Yamaha recorder. So Yamaha and I go way back. I played Yamaha guitars, classical guitars and nylon strings when I was an active guitar player. And it's a great company, great instruments. And we talked about that and kind of the behind-the-scenes aspects of it. One of those things being sponsorships. Chris has signed over 2,000 artists to contract. Among some of those artists, Elton John, Alicia Keys, Paul McCartney. He's also worked as a concert producer, a live event producer, and the list of productions is really just unbelievable. Michael McDonald, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, again, Elton John, Norah Jones, Brad Paisley, Natalie Cole, John Legend. So you can imagine with working with so many artists like that, there were a lot of stories, and we certainly got those on this episode of Music Business Radio with Chris Gero. Here's what we talked about. Chris actually started out as a musician, which I think is fascinating because when you think of like sponsorship and musical instrument manufacturer, yeah, sure, there are musicians involved, but for a guy to start out as a musician and a Yamaha-sponsored artist, they obviously saw something within him to bring him in to kind of revamp the artist sponsorship program, and with that musical background was able to tell them what musicians needed and communicate with musicians in a way that a business person would not be able to. So I talked to him about going from a sponsored artist with a record deal and not really giving that up. He still plays piano. He's played for over 30 years, but going full-time with the music business company, Yamaha. We talked about the transition, his decision-making process. Was it scary? Because usually as musicians, and I'm a musician too, and transitioned over to the business as well, but I didn't start playing guitar, which was my main instrument, because I wanted to be in the music business. I just kind of found myself, and ultimately for me anyway, I was better at marketing than I was playing guitar, and it was kind of obvious, but it's not always for everybody, and we talked about Chris. I imagine, and he'll talk about it more on the show, and you can listen to him because I'm going to not say exactly what he said, but you don't go into playing piano and being a musician just because you want to start signing sponsorship deals. But with 2,000 artists, he's very, very good at it. And we talked about building that sponsorship campaign. We talked about what it takes for an artist to get a sponsorship deal with Yamaha. So if you're interested, not just with Yamaha, just for any company, this is what these big musical instrument companies are looking for from you as a musician. And is it the kind of thing where you can just go there and just have your like the key to the office supply closet, go in there and get you a few different guitars and walk out and do nothing? Or is it the kind of thing that they expect something from you? Well, we talked about that. That's on this episode with Chris Gero. So he built a new sponsorship program. We talked about protecting the brand. Are there any kind of artists that he doesn't want? There absolutely are. You may be one of them. So listen to this episode before you get in contact with Chris or Yamaha or any company. We talked about live show production, what makes a good live show, any tips for acts, because he is working with a lot of artists. I mentioned like Ray Charles. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that, but a new Elton John show called the $1 Million Piano. Yamaha designed a piano. It's actually, I think, $1,400,000 that he plays on, which is unbelievable. We talked about some of the most expensive instruments that Yamaha makes. We talked about getting calls from Clive Davis. We talked about Bruno Mars. We talked about Outkast. We talked about artists that are not a match and artists that he didn't think was a match, but he wishes he had spent the time to actually get them into the Yamaha fold. We talked about a new record label. This is very exciting that Yamaha has started. They are, believe it or not, out of Nashville, Tennessee. Worldwide company with a record label in Nashville. A lot of people are saying, hey, it's not a good time to be in the music business. Even record labels like Sony, another huge Japanese company, almost ditched their music division entirely. And Yamaha's jumping in. They're doing the zig to Sony's zag. So why now? Why do you start a record label? What is it that you're looking for in an artist? We talked about how Chris had signed. Leo Gunn is the name of the act. And this was a band out of England, and what they thought about being signed by Yamaha, what they thought about being based out of Nashville, Tennessee. At the very end of the episode, that's what I think the best part was. We had just a minute left. We're working on a tight schedule. We can only record for 54 minutes because, well, we've only got 54 minutes plus 6 minutes of commercials. So I asked Chris about risk. Thought just it's a good way to end the show. Got about a minute. And he had some great answers about taking risk in your career, about transitioning careers. If you're working a day job, you're definitely going to want to hear this. It was about failure, about how he makes more mistakes than he does things right, but still ends up succeeding. Again, Yamaha, a $5 billion company, and they allow him to make these mistakes. And it's the same thing that you can do with your music business. If you're a guy who's wanting to quit your day job and go full-time as a music professional, if you're somebody who wants to take the leap, as Chris did, from a musician job to one that is more in the music business, it's about really taking any risk. It's about getting married. It's about getting divorced. It's about buying. You can use this advice anywhere. And it's at the very end. I thought it was an incredible way to wrap up what we recorded today. And it's just a really great show all around. Chris Gero, he's an incredible guy, very generous with his time, and he gave some great advice. So whether you're looking for an endorsement deal, you just want to be inspired by a guy who's working with top name artists, Elton John, Paul McCartney, Norah Jones, Ray Charles. Find out how he got there. You can get it online at musicbusinessradio.com. Thank you for listening to this behind-the-scenes episode of the podcast, and I will see you online and on the radio soon.